Salutations, everybody. Hello, world. Welcome to another episode of Perspectives Podcast. We are your hosts. My name is Littyyy Bro Flacko. This is Holden Stephan Roy. Say hi, Holden.
Hi, Holden.
Today we've got EO Dub veteran alumni, the Dubbchivist, hip hop aficionado, New York official all day representative. I don't know if let me just introduce you as the Dubbchivist. I was gonna do the thing where like I ask you to do the thing. I need to relax. Let the show take over,
man. Yo, peace and love, man. Peace and love. Happy to be here. Appreciate y'all having me. What's cracking, world?
Yo, appreciate you taking the time to be with us. For real. Thank you so much.
Absolutely, man.
So the way we start off the show is we give our origin story, right? Because we're gonna ask you for your origin story. So it's only fair for us to share our origin story with you. You know what I'm saying? So me and Holden, right? I was going on the Littyyy Bros promo tour, right? Doing me and Jess was doing Littyyy Bros Volume 1. And I got Jess to fall back from doing the engineering on Littyyy Bros Volume 1, right? And I handed it over to a homie up in Montreal, the homie Merker Miyagi, and he took care of all the engineering duty. And so like usually Merker might as well be a New Yorker, right? Because the way that he operates is like he does not promote anybody that he works with because he doesn't want to be obligated to promote some trash. Like, you know what I mean? So like sometimes you work with people that you don't want to promote necessarily. So you promote one person, now you got to promote everybody. You know what I mean? So he don't promote nobody that he works with. You know what I'm saying? But he ended up promoting us, and it was like, according to Holden, like a very like alluring post that made him be like, wait a minute, I gotta check these guys out. So he checked us out and he liked what he heard enough that it led him down to reviewing the album, right? And Holden did reviews amongst other things back then, right? And me being the thirst bucket that I was like, yo, we should do an interview. He was like, I was going to ask you to do that. And so we did the interview, and bro, that shit was like therapy. So I was like, yo, you know what? Be dope. We joined forces, and I start bringing some of the homies, right, to you, and we start interviewing them together. And 51 episodes later, here we are.
I think we miscounted, and we're at 52 now. That's what we had discovered. So this is 52.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. So officially this would be
episode.
Last was the 51st. Based on because remember anyway we double checked it and you had pointed out that I had miscounted and we are officially at 52 this point.
Word. So you know here we are 52 episodes later.
I'm like the 1 year anniversary then.
Yeah.
So somewhat semi.
Yeah. That's fucking good shit. That's
right.
Good.
So Holden has his set of questions he likes to ask, right? But like I like to cut him off and ask something else first, which is why don't you tell the people what your name is, what you go by, where you're from, and then where your parents are from.
Okay, all right. So my name is my government name is Olivier Daniel Utino. Yeah, most people know me as most people know me as O within the Dub circles. The extended Zoom family would know me as the Dubbchivist. I've also gone under the pen names of Haiti and 1804. That's 180H, the number 4. And so what could I say, man? I mean, a New York City kid, born and raised, as you alluded to earlier, Flacko. Born in the Bronx, never lived a second day in my entire life. Came home right to Queens. Yep, BX stand up. Interesting story before we get in any deeper. Like my wife and I were actually born in the same hospital, roughly 3, almost 4 years apart. So yeah, shout to Albert Einstein Medical Center up in the BX. Hey, and then and then been a Queens kid my whole life. 42 years living in Queens. So I'm like 54 toes down, you know what I'm saying, as a New Yorker. And what else, man? Let's see.
Your parents?
Yeah.
My parents are both Haitian immigrants. So both of my parents were born in the
and that is where the name comes from.
Yeah,
that is where the name comes from.
I was
puzzling. I was like, that seems very French to me.
Yo,
Olivier.
That is
I know that.
Yeah. That was a super French name when he said it. I was like, I was gonna ask, but I was like, you know what? Just let the goddamn journey go where it's gonna go. It's gonna take you where you want to go. You gotta trust in the journey sometimes.
We gonna get there, B. We gonna get there. As long as we moving, we gonna get there.
I knew I asked you about where your parents was from, and I was gonna get the answer there somewhere.
Yeah, for sure, man. So yeah, both of my parents born and raised in the country of Haiti. Father immigrated to this country in 1963. November, which is kind of interesting timing, and then historically, and then my mother actually immigrated to the States in 1968, which again is a historically relevant time in this country. So yeah, man, that's where I'm from.
I'm gonna let Holden jump into his first question, but okay. I want you to make sure to, after you're done answering that, let's touch back on the relevance of those years in particular that you mentioned.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah, because I'm not from your country a little bit, so right. I mean, I know a bit of U.S. history, and I follow one too. Mm-hmm. But a whole lot of the world don't know the context of which probably is relevant and interesting context that the world maybe should know about.
I was thinking he was referencing Haiti's history, right? So
is it Haiti's history?
Yeah. No, it's actually United States history that's extremely relevant to those times.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Okay. Perfect.
I digress
into that.
So yeah, we can
we're gonna get into it.
Go with the question then. It's a bit of a story. It starts out with my girlfriend. She'd be washing the dishes one time. She got her phone out and she's playing that Black Eyed Peas song. I got a feeling. Ooh. She vibing. She dancing. She doing her thing. And I just kind of look at her and I have this thought to myself, and I'm like, when the fuck did this song become chorus music, right? Because you think about this song, run it back 10 years, and it's middle of the night, party vibes, everybody drunk, dancing around, celebrations, victory, fun times. Run it 10 years into the future, song doesn't change at all because it's a song, but we evolve so much as people that the context this song has in our life has changed, and now it's some shit we play when we be washing dishes or working out or doing other boring things and want to go back to those days of drunkenly celebrating whatever we were celebrating. And that got me just thinking about the cycles of music and stuff, and how all these little ones running around partying to this music, they don't even know that one day it's their future dishes washing and chores music, or that when I heard the Pop Smoke, it was that's the new dishes washing music and stuff, because it just jumps right there for me. We skipped the steps and shit. And then it brought me, and then it made me think about all these journeys and the placement of life and stuff, and how usually in these interviews and stuff, and especially with people at hip hop and whatnot, everybody's story starts when they're 10, 11 years old, when they first discover hip-hop, or they just decide to start rapping, or some other catalyst takes place. But usually it's because that's when we start to form our identities, so it's when we start caring about music, etc. But if we think about music and its influence on us, is something that when you popped out that medical center place in the Bronx, right, there was a good chance there was a song playing in that room, and a little baby Dubbchivist was absorbing the energies of that song, even if none of us remember it. And I just started like thinking a bit about it's like my childhood and stuff, being like 5 years old up in the apartment in Montreal, where like we had those gray boxes all over the living room, the tape deck and the preamp and the amp and the radio one, and the wires going around with the surround sound speakers all around the crib. And you know, my dad would bust out the Led Zeppelin tapes and things like that in the daytime. At nighttime, it was a lot more of these like club mixes that would be live from the clubs in Montreal. And then my mom's, it was more like Disney's and musicals and love songs and discos and all of that kind of stuff. And it was just like this realization of all these different sounds and songs and things that kind of impacted me before I had any control over what I listened to, and how much that like hit me to this very day. It made me realize the story just starts way earlier than we usually do. So I was hoping, Mr. Olivier the Dubbchivist, that you could run us back to the youngest Olivier you could remember being, and tell us a little bit about what it sounds like to be you, but also with that context that, you know, most of us ain't from the Queens and don't know a lot about it, and are maybe not even from your country.
Man, so music, like most people, has always been like there, right? It's always been present, like you say, from nascence, right? Probably the youngest and earliest like musical memories I have. When I was a kid, there wasn't necessarily a song or you know, a genre that kind of sticks out. What does stick out, I mean, obviously there was music and there was influential music, and I'll touch on a couple of those things in a second, right? But what music did for me, or at least what music represented for me, was a cool. You know what I'm saying? Like, just kind of like clout, I guess, would be the word that we use today, right? So like, you know, I could just remember like as a kid, I used to have this red windbreaker jacket, right? Typical kind of like, you know, late 70s, early 80s, this red little zip up or snap button windbreaker. And I can remember like as a kid, I would always put on this windbreaker, find some sunglasses. My father used to have some Ray-Ban aviators back in the day at this time. And I would either put on the sunglasses or not, but always with the red windbreaker. And I would grab an old tennis racket, and I would turn that tennis racket around and pretend as though I was strumming on a guitar, right? On the tennis racket strings. And so like, I just remember and can recall always feeling like musicians were cool. Musicians had their fingers on the pulse of like the hip, the now, the what's going down. And so like, they, you know, I guess naturally I kind of just had this kind of like affinity for music, because I found that musicians and musicianship was kind of cool, right? And people who did those things were cool. And so I wanted to be cool. And so I would emulate that, you know what I mean? By putting on my little red windbreaker and acting like a fucking rock star, right? So like those young memories, there is no kind of like specific song or genre or anything of that nature. However, my parents, you know, as I mentioned at the top, you know, did come to this country at pivotal times. If you think of 63, you think of 68. In November of 1963, John F. Kennedy is assassinated. In the summer of 1968, Martin Luther King is assassinated, to be followed up shortly thereafter by Robert Kennedy. So the country in general at the time that my parents were arriving was definitely within the throes of like the civil rights movement, right? People's movements for equality, equality across the board in pay and race relations and housing, and all of these things are popping off. And so protest and struggle music was really kind of like prevalent, you know what I'm saying? Like rock in a big way. My parents were huge or my mom in particular was a huge Beatles fan. But like protest and struggle music, so like Jimi Hendrix, Willie Nelson, Nelson Mandela's in jail at the, as I'm a kid. So Stevie Wonder, banging on WBAI or WKCR, every year of Nelson Mandela's birthday, you know what I'm saying? We'd be listening to kind of like these protest songs and stations, and Stevie Wonder's, Free Nelson Mandela was always, like something that would play often, you know what I mean? Or that I would hear often. So things of that nature, man, understanding like Woodstock, even though like my parents weren't here in at the time, or even if they were, they didn't attend, but, the feeling of like, people's populist movements, you know what I'm saying, equality movements, etc. So, that kind of music and that kind of idea for people's rights and people's struggle has always been, in close association with the music. If you fast forward a little bit, like you alluded to, like people being 9 or 10 years old, and that's kind of like where there's some of their first memories in music come from. The music that was like striking a chord with me, at kind of those ages was very much in line with what I had been exposed to by my parents, right? And in that, I'm talking about like Public Enemy. You know what I'm saying? Talking about Fight the Power and shit like that. I'm talking about disruptors like NWA, right? Like listening to Straight Outta Compton for the first time, or hearing that for the first time, and just really being blown away by profanity in music and people being unapologetically Black in their music. You know what I'm saying? And kind of like raising this awareness of fights and of struggles that are going on, right? That are age old and day old and forever old, you know what I'm saying? And so like, especially when it comes to like being that young and listening to like an NWA and being like, oh man, like, kind of like, feeling kind of like, almost giddy in a way, you know what I mean? Like I got this shit in my headphones and, and I'm talking like the little, thin aluminum, with the fuzzy, with the little like orange and black, the little foam covered headphones, right? Like the shit that if you took off the foam, the headphone like would be tweaking in your ear and popping, and you could hear all that, all that crackling and shit in your ears. So this is like back, and like being giddy and shit, like, oh shit, like I'm listening to this shit. These dudes are cursing up a storm, but they saying shit that kind of like resonates with me and the things that I've been taught to kind of look out for and be wary of, and be sensitive to, and those kind of things. So it was always like, and even a recognition, oddly so, ironically so, that what was being said and what I was hearing in my ears, although it was kind of like protest and struggle music, was also kind of like out of bounds for me at that age, you know what I'm saying? And like, should someone discover that I was listening to that, they'd be held to pay. So, and then I am at the end of the day, and first and foremost, a kid from Queens. And so, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention, feeling and knowing that at the time in the early 80s, there was a lot of noise coming out of Queens from the likes of, MC Shan, the Cold Crush Crew, Marley Marl, Run from Run DMC was a next door neighbor to my cousins back in the day. He and his family, like in the Raising Hell days, you know what I'm saying? So, recognizing in that LL Cool J making tremendous noise, you know, Rush Management, Cold Chillin' Records, like all of that shit. Like there was a recognition that I was kind of in a place where a lot of magic was happening, if you will, in terms of like hip hop. You know what I'm saying?
I do, but can I just say, these are some of the most like thorough answers. Like you be like pulling shit out of books in your head, just like fucking cross-referencing here. It's wild to listen to you like think out loud. That's so cool.
Thank you, man.
So let's say like in that childhood phase before you're like 10, what were you up to? If like, you know, like were you involved in some like music in some way, or like, or was it just, you know, what kind of activities did a young one get up to?
I mean, I guess I was like most. That's a lie. I wasn't like most kids, you know what I'm saying? Number one, as a first generation Haitian American, there was a lot of there were stigmas. There were attacks. There were kind of, you know what I'm saying? There was like the idea of like, you know, Haitian boat people, you know what I'm saying? You know, there was I have to say, first and foremost, my father, and by extension my mother, were politically active, and my father mostly still is politically active within the Haitian American community, right? So working with the Haitian diaspora. And so the differences for me was kind of like this real like instilling of a certain pride. There was a real education early on in terms of like who I was as a person and what I was descended from, and who and where we come from. So my parents being politically active, you know, working with the Haitian community, my father for 30 or so years, probably more. He and his friends ran a community, you know, a nonprofit organization in service of the Haitian community throughout the state of New York and the country at large.
That's really big, and that's like you're also pretty privileged to have that. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like to have parents like that involved, and that right, like I mean, you know, like I call these privileges, and like like they are, right? Like technically speaking, you know. Tell us more. Hold on though. Finish.
Yeah. Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, it was a privilege, you know what I'm saying? However, it wasn't, you know, I don't know how much privilege someone feels as like a toddler, elementary school age kid, you know, being the source of ridicule, you know, with things like Haitian body odor and you know.
Yeah, I was gonna help you get into that, right? Because like, right, like we grew up in the same city, right? So like, you saying right that you're Haitian, and like I'm saying that's a privilege in the sense of like that your father was that involved in your community, right? It might not have seemed evident because you were essentially like your dad was getting you clout amongst a community that was not the cool community, right? Like Jamaicans got made fun of, and Jamaicans would make fun of Haitians. That's how far down the Caribbean rung Haitians were in the city, right? Where like,
that's two whole facts.
You know what I'm saying? So
I know that it wasn't. Like, I didn't know any of that really.
Haitians and African immigrants were like probably the most like mocked and ridiculed in New York City in the 80s and the 90s.
Fact. That you know, there was you know, for a time being Haitian in this city was so rough. You know, that a lot of Haitians would I mean, some took it as far as to grow their hair out in dreads and things like that, and still do. But that's, you know, but less so now as a means of kind of like hiding who they are. But the term Jafakin, right? comes from like the days of my upbringing, you know what I'm saying, and the days of my youth, where, you know, it was so ridiculed and so kind of like shameful to be Haitian, that a lot of people would front like they were Jamaicans, and so that term Jafaican came from, not me, you know what I'm saying, personally, because the pride of who my people are and what we did in this world, and what we accomplished, which by the way has never been replicated ever again in the history of man. Right? And we talking 1804 stand up, and hence where, you know, sometime my pen name comes into play. You know, so there was a great sense of pride, you know. Holden, you know, your real question was kind of like what was going on, and like what I was doing in my formative years, and a large part of my formative years was spent in sort of like the community center that my father was running along with his team. You know, going to events, watching events be put together, and events could be anything from cultural events where, you know, artists, musicians, you know, playwrights, poets, etc., whatever, you know, spanning the gamut of artistry, you know, would participate and perform in these things, from, you know, from things like that to informational things, you know what I'm saying, like watching the community center function in terms of like providing ESL and computer literacy courses, to doing taxes and helping with immigration filings and things like that. So yeah, man, community work, working on behalf and in service of your people was something that was, you know, that was 90% of the time that was spent outside of school when we were kids growing up, my brother and I.
Word.
That is a wildly different experience than virtually almost everybody I've talked to in any of the, not even just this show, anything in most of my life. Like, that's like, because it's not even like religious or anything. It's just truly like building up the community.
Yeah.
That's like,
that's,
and then you're part of that too. And you're just like in the middle of, and then in the midst of that, you're like listing all these real life skills that are like super useful shit that you're getting involved in since time. I mean, that's a super, I mean, it might have.
Let me ask you a question. Did your father happen to end up like assisting in his own like larger campaign for like a larger office, or like helping somebody else, or like on a campaign for like a larger seat in office?
Yeah. I mean, shit.
I asked that because that usually, like, that type of like community, right, like activism leads to that, like, is helping,
right,
you know, pretty sure, you know, like some mayor or president, you know what I mean,
man,
like benefited from your father.
Preach on it, man. 100%. You know what I'm saying? Shit. If you go back in my ancestry, I actually got a couple of people, you know, down the line who actually served as fucking president of the country of Haiti in the late 80s, early 90s. My parents, or my father, and the organizations that he was involved in were instrumental in helping Jean-Bertrand Aristide ascend to the presidency, who was the first like democratically elected leader in Haiti's history post the dictatorships of Papa and Baby Doc, I should say. And you know, and even when he was in exile, I remember when I was about 12 or 13 years old, he had been exiled by the military coup that ousted him, and you know, my father and his team, they organized an event where Aristide came and you know, gave a speech to the people while he was in exile and deposed, before going back to Haiti and then turning into a fucking scumbag who was fucking essentially like working at the behest of the fucking United States government, you know what I'm saying? And at which point, like, my father and his people's you know, had lost love for the man, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I was about to say retracted any and all cosigns. And we're like, yeah, we're not associated with that shit. Like,
yeah, you know what I mean?
Originally, we all had a game plan going in. This motherfucker went left.
I think it's so cool that, like you just know all this shit because it's like your dad. Like, I read books about this shit, bro. And you're just like, yeah, this is what we grew up with. My dad did that. I'm like...
Technically speaking, like, you're a diplomat, right?
Yeah.
Like, right? Like,
I mean,
family
I'm
diplomat
I'm diplomat adjacent.
Adjacent. I was about to say diplomat adjacent. Yo, son, as long as you can get that motherfucking plaque, son, what?
That's hype, though.
Start rolling through with the diplomat license plate.
So
oh my
arguably,
God.
I can see what you mean now when you say that your life was a little bit different, because that's some super different shit. That's so. Anyway.
Yeah, no, I mean, and you gotta like check it out real quick. Like that, there's a negative connotation nowadays associated with diplomats and with politics, right? And governance because of how much corruption we've seen across history, right? But like ideally, like it's like I like to tell people about like social media, right? Like a lot of people complain about social media being like negative, and I seen one time Saigon speaking on an interview saying that like IG was nothing but tits and ass. And I'm like, no, sir, it's not. It's a tool. Right. It's a tool. Right. It's that you're following all these people that are showing tits and ass. If you stop 100%. Following tits and ass and you just start following a bunch of realtors, your IG feed will now become nothing but realty education. You know what I mean?
Right.
But because you're choosing to use this tool in this way, it is now that. And it has that negative connotation, right? So, like, politicians and diplomats and people in position of governance, these aren't supposed to be a negative stereotype. It's just that there's been so many throughout history that people kind of get this idea in their head. But ideally, anybody who's, like, in a place of governance is usually put there by the people, because the people believe this to be a person that can help them to a better place. You know what I mean?
Correct.
So, like...
Also, I mean, just because there's a lot of bad politicians, I don't think history ever really focuses enough on the good politics. Like... Like, it's just there. Like, politics is just there, but there's a lot of, like, good people in it. Or, like, they're just really... not documented because they often don't have egos, but they're good at politics.
Right. Like the people behind the scenes who become fucking, attorneys general or something like that. But they don't seek office because even they have a kind of disdain for politics. You know what I'm saying? Or politics, if you will. You know what I mean? But it's interesting, man, as they say, like politics, power corrupts, right? As they say. And so, even the noblest of politicians got into it to a certain degree because of what kind of like liberties or deference that they'd be afforded as a result of their position, you know what I'm saying? And so, it's the, like what Holden said, I think those examples, of those good-natured and good-hearted politicians, I think, I think I would probably say are the majority, are in the majority, but they're not the loudest voices that you typically hear in the room. You know what I'm saying? And when you think about it, right, like to become or to aspire to something like the presidency of a place, of a country, right? Like you got to be a little bit batshit fucking crazy. Right?
Yeah, no, you do.
You got to be, you know what I'm saying? You got to be like a little bit egomaniacal. You know what I'm saying? You gotta be a little bit fucking batshit crazy. I think there's a certain level of naivete and fucking ignorance that comes along with that shit too.
Or a strong amount.
Right. You know what I'm saying? But definitely you got to be on your own dick. You know what I'm saying? If you thinking like, yo, nigga, I could be president of something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or of anywhere, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I have a friend who said to me that, like, you know, there's nobody that, like, gets to the presidency without getting dirty and filthy. You know what I mean? And it's just like, so it's natural that, like, once you are president, like, you're no longer a good person. Like, if you were ever a good person and that's why you were running, by the time you get to the presidency, you done did so much dirt that it's like that good shit is gone.
So much
like,
shit. Yeah,
you're not the good guy you once were. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's just like, and then you have to do so much dirt as the right. Like, it's like the presidency leadership always entails so much. Somebody is gonna get the shaft at the end of the day. Somebody you're gonna make sure that somebody's taken care of and that somebody's getting fucked.
Somebody getting shit on.
And in that you're always gonna be doing bad. You know what I mean? And so you're always gonna be, you know, just a pig in shit as a president. You know, like
that's a fact, yo. That's a fact.
No, that makes a lot of sense.
Like, you know, I mean, look, even if you take like somebody like Aristide, right? Roman Catholic priest, elected with like 99.9% of the fucking vote. You know, swept into power by a wave of anti-corruption. You know. And just like nobility, you know what I'm saying? Not nobility in terms of where he came from, but nobility in terms of his intentions, right? And so he ascends to the fucking presidency. He gets deposed by the fucking coup, and then ultimately like gets put back in power, you know, with shackles on. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, like, you know, the United States doesn't help you get back into something like a presidency or back into power without being like, well, you know, we'll do this for you. So what are you going to do for us? And so obviously,
absolutely.
Your politics change along whatever lines, though, you know, those are, you know, dictated to you, if you will. But yeah, man. So that's you know, that's what I was around. Protest, struggle, you know what I'm saying? Like the fight for right, things like that. That's what was going on in my world, you know what I'm saying? When I was a kid coming up.
All right, so then you discover protest music at like 10. That's wild. We're like this deep in. We got all kinds of history lessons, and you're like now 10. That's a dope start. I'll fucks with
that. Thank you, man. Yeah, it was good times, I guess.
So, like, when you discovered the hip-hop side of it all and you started getting into it, did you have desires of creating music, or were you, like, a fan of it, or, like, what is your relationship with it all?
I did kind of, you know, think that one day I would create music. It didn't end up panning out that way. But I was definitely fortunate to be around a lot of dope fucking people that were doing music. But I write, and so like I would write poetry, and I would write things, you know, short stories and things like that. So that was kind of like where my talents would manifest. But I've always been a humongous fan of music. I've always been, you know, I've always been around a lot of talented folk. And you know, I just never, you know what? That's not entirely true. At a time, or at a particular time, I would say around like junior high school, like I wanted to actually sing, right? I actually wanted to make music. I wasn't so much into making hip hop music. I was into kind of like singing. And you know, for whatever reason as a kid, like I had wanted to, you know, I wanted to pursue music, and when I was, you know, getting ready to go to high school and shit, I had the opportunity to apply to the High School for Performing Arts, which is what the TV show, I don't know if you're familiar, Holden, with the TV show Fame.
Yeah.
But the the TV show Fame is modeled after the high school for performing arts out here in New York, and I wanted to go, but I was scared of auditioning. I was scared of like performing in front of people and shit. So kind of like a little bit of shyness and like a little bit of apprehension and honestly a little bit of fear kind of held me back from pursuing that. Which it's interesting that I'm even saying that shit, because just yesterday I was lamenting to my wife how I really should have pursued it. Like I really wanted to have pursued it and I should have. But so I guess that kind of like is why I've been adjacent to it, you know, for so many years, you know what I mean? But yeah, at a time I did aspire to, at other times I aspired to some other things, but like my creativity always manifested itself in terms of like writing, you know, pieces of literature, poetry, like I said, things like that. So I got other kind of like artistic interests as well, but musically, that's where it was at.
That makes a lot of sense. So over the course of high school, you're just kind of more involved in the scene, but like actually just being the guy in the scene as opposed to being the guy trying to be the guy in the scene.
Yeah. I mean, so I went to Brooklyn Tech. Like you know, I know Flacco knows a little bit more about.
So you went to Brooklyn Tech. If you didn't, I was wondering what school you ended, right? So like to share a little bit of mine, right? Like I wanted to go to art and design, right? But like I actually went to take the test, and like you know, I guess like my art wasn't good enough for them and shit, and like they were like, no, fuck you, you know what I mean? So like where did you end up though, right? Like I ended up at Truman High School in the Bronx and shit. Also, to put a nice exclamation point on it, I ended up taking college courses at FIT while at Columbus. So it was like, fuck you, art and design. I could do better than you anyway. You know what I mean? But where did you go? Like, because you didn't end up at performing arts, so you went to Brooklyn Tech.
I did. So there was kind of like there was another interesting kind of thing at play at the time, which was up until I was going to high school, I had been enrolled in and was always in private schools. So like my first school experience was a Montessori. Pardon me real quick, I'm gonna shut off this thing because that battery's about to die. I went to a Montessori followed by a Catholic school for 7 years, right? So this is like 9 to 10 years of my parents paying like hefty tuition, you know what I'm saying, for me to attend school. And there was one thing that was clear when it was coming time for me to go to high school, which was my parents were not paying for school beyond like the 8th grade. Like they were like, yo, at this point you're gonna have to go to you're gonna have to like, you either gonna get into one of the fucking specialized high schools or you go into the zone high school, the local school, you know what I'm saying? So, you know, I took the test like thousands of other New York City school kids do. My brother had actually gone to Bronx Science ahead of me. I didn't score high enough to attend Bronx Science or Stuyvesant, so I ended up at Brooklyn Tech, which was not my first choice. But in retrospect, I'm happy that it turned out the way that it did, because it enabled me to kind of like find my own path. You know what I'm saying? Like as you know, had I gone to Bronx Science, for example, I would have been L's little brother. You know what I'm saying? Coming to school.
Okay,
like,
copy.
You know what I'm saying? He was there, and I would go and people knew me and shit.
That
was
the same reason I avoided certain schools, because I wasn't trying to follow behind my older brother and sister.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? So it was like one way or another, I was gonna go to a public school, because my parents weren't paying for another like private or Catholic school, and you know, I took the test and I scored just enough to get into Tech, and so I went to Tech, which, you know, again, like allowed me to kind of like develop my own kind of path, and make, you know, super valuable friendships. You know what I'm saying? Like Pro and I have been friends since we were 14 years old.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? And so, you know, I was at Tech, and, you know, Pro, as y'all know, is a fucking super fucking dope MC. And there were 4 to 5 like other really, really, really fucking good MCs that came out of Tech at the same time that, you know, that he and I were there, you know what I'm saying? And so, like, you know, in a way, like, you know, it was like those dudes were so good that it was just like, fuck, I don't know if I'll ever be that good, even if I fucking tried, but at least I could fucking, you know, at least I could fucking try to help these dudes fucking do something, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, like, you know, Pro and I, our friendship isn't based on that shit, but it's a big part of who we are as friends, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Yeah.
So I guess as you're like going through like past high school and stuff, like in high school, I guess, do you get involved in anything in particular with writing, since you're already kind of pursuing those route as well?
Not particularly, and you know, more than just working at my own, you know, working on my own stuff and just doing shit for myself, doing shit for my friends, doing shit as classwork. But I would pour myself into fucking like assignments, you know what I'm saying? Like I would dedicate myself to fucking really, you know, putting out fucking high quality work. Like I can remember sophomore year, I took this English class, right? It was called Music and Literature. Movies and Literature, excuse me. I took this English class. It was film and literature, right? So we would study books that had been turned into films, and you know, kind of compare and contrast like the films to the novels and things of that nature. And sophomore year, to be like 100% candid, I lost my virginity, right? So, you know, shit changed quick. You know what I'm saying? Like priorities changed quick. You know what I'm saying?
I know exactly what you're talking about, son. You know what I mean? I literally always cite that as like, I went from comic books and cartoons to beers and bitches. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like that was the graduation in life. You know what I mean? And it was behind, you know, girls. It was just girls. Once it became girls, it was like girls was like that took up 100% of my time.
Yo, 100% of the fucking time. You know what I'm saying? And so like I started. You know, obviously I started, you know, skirt chasing and cutting class a lot. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. But I remember I had been cutting this class a lot. You know what I mean? And, you know, getting close to the end of the year and the day of the final comes and shit like that. And like, you know, I'd been through the ringer with this teacher, you know, from cutting classes to putting out good work to doing all kinds of shit, you know what I'm saying? And like originally starting the semester off sitting all the way in the back of the classroom to being front and center by the end of the semester, you know what I'm saying? And so like, I remember walking into the final and I was like, yo, I hadn't been in class in like 2-3 weeks at this point, you know what I'm saying? But I knew the final was coming up. So I'd show up to class and we're sitting right in front. And the dude, you know, frankly, the teacher was gay, right? And so he was all hissy and shit about me, like having been out of class for 3 weeks. And I'm sitting in the very first seat of like the second or third row, whatever. And, you know, he drops the test papers on my desk, you know, take one, pass it back type shit. And, you know, he's like, oh, you know, had been saying some shit about like, now you show up, blah, 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 talking shit about me having been cut in class, whatever. And so he puts the test down on my desk and I looked up at him and I was like, yo, you know, I'm gonna ace this shit, right? And so like, I proceeded to fucking take the test and get like an A- or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like I killed the fucking test. And so when he gave it back to me, it had this comment on it, and I still got it to this day. And it's this kind of shit that kind of led me to becoming and being the Dubbchivist. But the comment on it was, on this level, ... what a shame. So I crushed this fucking exam. You know what I'm saying? Like I absolutely fucking destroyed that shit. So, you know, he was right. You know what I'm saying? It was a shame. You know what I'm saying? Like I was fucking like, you know, I had this fucking brilliant ass fucking talent. And like I was just a fucking skirt chaser.
I respect that. I in grade 10 and 11 won the most outstanding underachiever award 2 years back to back, and
facts, outstanding. You were underachieving in outstanding fashion.
We used to blatantly disrespect this teacher. He was wonderful, and he was like the best top 5 teacher.
The best.
Like, you know?
It's always the nicest teachers.
We used to like play backgammon and shit in the back of his class just to like. We didn't give a fuck.
Yeah,
come on, I got fucking backgammon.
Stories.
Like at least
I got stories of being a fucking horrible human being to some teachers.
I don't know why there were backgammon tables, but it was there. Okay, so what are you gonna do? Not play backgammon if you're doing science shit?
Yo, backgammon is there, son. Play that fucking backgammon, B. Fuck it.
Lit.
Nah, but I felt that though, cause I mean I got like 90 something, and he called me an outstanding underachiever. Like it was high grades, and he's like, imagine if you applied yourself a little bit.
Yeah. So I've been a little bit. I've fallen victim to some of my own fucking kind of like underachieving in life in general. But I still turned out pretty good up until this point. But yeah. So I have written some things. I mean, you know, my chosen career choices, you know, as you probably know or you know may know or already. I
have honestly very little idea.
Nah. Yeah, I've been in the fashion industry for about 18 years. I'm coming up on my 18th anniversary. Yeah, I'm coming up on my 18th anniversary of being in the fashion business. Actually longer than that, but for 18 years like as a wholesale professional. And so like writing has served me in in certain ways. Like I've done in the industry, I've done, you know, like copywriting for products, product, you know, like lookbooks and things like that. I've built, you know, I've written copy for websites and things of that nature. I've done specialty writing services like, you know, biography writing for personalities and you know, and people, you know, coming up with copy for like, you know, like I said, websites and brands and things like that. So I've done some creative writing, but not, you know, like not necessarily always for myself.
I mean, all of that's ill stills. Like, I know it's like weird to write copy for someone else, but when you do it well, it feels pretty good stills.
Nah, 100%. And in a way, it's like it's still being published, right?
And it's like you're literally a professional writer at that point. It's not like some fake shit like you put a book out. Nah, B, you're like so good at writing, motherfuckers pay you to write.
Yeah, facts. That's a fact.
I thought about that for like a long time. I do a lot of I mean, I wrote tutorials, all that kind of shit, you know. But for software and whatever. Then I got into the freelance side where you just copy other people's words and paraphrase it and make it a little bit more your own brands. And
yo, that's what fucking school is, right? Like doing a fucking term paper is like 10 to 15% fact, and then like 90 to 85% of you like embellishing and offering your fucking opinion and hey, dare I say, perspective on the you know what I'm saying, on the info, you know what I mean, in the situation, you know what I'm saying. So yeah, so I was great at bullshitting my way through fucking school and getting good grades and things like that. I also chased skirts to my own detriment. Fucked up in school a lot too. So here I am.
Chasing skirts gives you skills later on in life that people who didn't chase skirts don't have, and it shows.
Yeah, that's a fact.
Like
facts.
It could be like a
big fact.
Not that everyone should do it, but like I don't know.
I mean, honestly, I always recommend, and I have literal track record of recommend, right? Like, not skirt chasing, right? But like when my little sister came from Puerto Rico, she moved back to New York for college, and I was dropping her off at her dorm room at Pace University down there in fucking Lower Manhattan. Downtown Manhattan. You know exactly where.
I did a year at Pace upstate Westchester.
Oh, word. Yeah, nah, she was down right like across the street from the Brooklyn Bridge, essentially, right? Like,
yeah.
And when I dropped her off, I was like, I let her know. I was like, yo, you're young, yo. This is the time to like live life. Like, you know what I mean? Find yourself, date as many guys as you want to, and you know, fuck if some, you know, college chicks are looking at you like, oh, you're a slut. It's like, fuck you, bitch. You know, I'm figuring shit out, you know, like figure it out. That's the time to figure it out. You know what I mean? Like between 18 to like 24, you should be figuring life out as much as possible. You should not be settling down with anybody because you don't know who you are yet. So you should figure you out first and foremost before you like embark into a relationship with someone without knowing yourself.
Plus, you don't want to do that shit in your 30s. I be seeing people getting into it in their 30s, and I'm like, it's just. I mean, look, I'm not trying to shame nobody. I'm just saying, like,
nah.
It's gonna make it hard to do some of those other empire building things. You know, like, it gets in like it's like. You know, like if you have to, it's not so much chasing skirts, it's having to learn how to at that age. That's the bad idea where you get experience points. Plus, it's all sales, right? And that's really what it is.
That's interesting.
I got into it a little bit later on in life. I'm not maybe as strong in sales as I would be otherwise. And I noticed that almost all my salespeoples from time approaching girls like that, like there's a correlation to it, you know, like customer service dudes be long-term relationship guys. They just like locked up.
Yo, it's funny. That's funny you put it like that.
That's
man.
Hilarious.
That's really hilarious.
You learn all about how to apologize. Yo, part of customer service training, high key, is literally an hour-long PowerPoint on the perfect apology.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy. I don't know if I've ever received that one, but if you got one, send it my way.
All right, Joe. So getting back to it, okay. You were saying that you were a little bit of a rule breaker, but you were smart enough to be getting everything done. So what was it that was the main focus at the time? Like, what was it that was keeping you from like focusing on like giving, or was it just, you know, natural? It was like, it's just the same.
I think, I think that if I'm being honest, I think that there was like a balance, right? Like, I come from like a really strict, classic immigrant parent upbringing where education is the focus. You know what I'm saying? But I am a first generation American. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So there was definitely this kind of like balance of in terms of like, education is first and foremost. Morality, knowing right from wrong, that which you learn can't be taken away from you. These really kind of foundational, I guess like tenets, right? These kind of like foundational principles, you know what I'm saying? That are like, yo, like get your education, nobody can steal that, can take that away from you. Don't do what you see people in the streets doing. Do what you're being taught at home. You know what I'm saying? That kind of thing. But balanced, counteracted and balanced by the fact that, I am a first generation American. My brother and I are largely like our own, our only support system in terms of figuring it out, right? Like all that shit you learn at home is great, you know what I'm saying? And everything that you're instilled with, yeah, wonderful. Those are, those inform like who you are when you step outside. But fuck, the experiences that you have when you fucking step outside inform who you are almost, to a greater degree, if not absolutely to a greater degree, you know what I'm saying? And so
absolutely.
We're New Yorkers, right? Like Flacko, you get it. You know what I'm saying? Like we New Yorkers, you know what I'm saying? Like we got a hustler spirit, you know what I'm saying? And so like the hustle and the temptation and everything are around you at the same time, right? Like I grew up in on the border of Elmhurst and Corona, Queens at the height of the crack era. You know what I'm saying? Like I remember I saw Hand in Hands, as a shorty. So along with all this like fucking beautiful and impactful like community-based education that I'm receiving from the things that my family is involved in and are toiling at and attempting to lift not just ourselves but other people up with us. I'm seeing the streets, you know what I mean? Like I'm seeing, I'm seeing the hustle, I'm seeing the grind, I'm seeing like dope heads, I'm fucking stepping on crack vials as a shorty, you know what I'm saying? So there was definitely what kept me kind of just on the fucking straight, so as kids, like my brother and I dabbled in things, right? Like, I won't get into what, right? You know what I'm saying? But we dabbled in things, right? We got our hands dirty in some things, you know what I'm saying? But, the thing or the rudder, right, that kept us, that kept me from fucking, at one time, I'll say it like this, right? At one time in my life, I thought I'd make a great porn star. But like, what would I look like being a fucking porn star when I got a family, like a loving family who fucking loves me and brought me up right? You know what I'm saying? And you know what I'm saying? Like, like that's the best way for me to put it. It's like, yo, the family keeps you grounded, right? So like that morality and the things that were instilled in me, kept me from becoming like a devious motherfucker. You know what I'm saying? Or but like, I know devious motherfuckers. You know what I'm saying? Like I broke bread with devious motherfuckers. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's.
I was about to defend the porn industry. One of these days, porn industry is gonna get its respect.
It's gonna get its respect.
We'll just treat them. We'll just treat them like the service givers that they are. You know what I mean? Like,
I think it's happening. I mean, if you want,
we're getting closer and closer. I think to like to a
because if you like think about it now, right? If you're like mad young, like it's just normal to have a homie or 8 that have OnlyFans right now. So it's really just like old people that be gonna be there. But soon enough, the corporate tycoon is, and it's not even, it might not even be a girl. It'll be some dude, and we're gonna find out he was doing OnlyFans back in the day, and it's gonna just be like too many people have that same skeleton in their closet that it's whatever. Who cares?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, listen, when I was,
but it was a big deal. It was a big fucking deal back when you were pretty much probably considering it, right? Like,
no, 100%. Nah, nigga, I never like seriously considered it. I just used it to illustrate like a fucking point. You know what I'm saying? Like,
he's like, this is the dirt I did not do.
I was definitely thinking about it. Like I was.
So that's why I'm like, listen. If opportunities have presented themselves, who the fuck knows? You know what I'm saying? But you know what I'm saying? Like, the family. I was trying to make the point that like family and kind of like my upbringing kept me from pursuits that might have otherwise been like really detrimental. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But yeah, man. So like, it was an we talk about normalizing the porn industry. Just on that note for a second, right? Like, who would have thunk? I was 14 the first time I smoked weed, right? Who would have thunk that we'd live in a fucking, like at 14, I never thought I'd live in a fucking world where I could fucking walk down the street.
And yeah, I've been talking about that a lot lately. Like, honestly, we're privileged in the fact that we got to live through so much. Like, I never thought that I'd see a black president in America. I never thought that, like, that I'd live to see a black president in America, or that I'd live to see the day that we could smoke weed freely and not be arrested for it. Like, I never thought that I'd live to see these days. So the fact that, like, I got to live through so many, like, monumental moments is like, yo, it's crazy.
100%.
Yeah,
it's a hell of a life.
Nah, it's wild stuff. Like, we're on cam and fully capable of monetizing this stream, right? Like, this is all monetizable because in both our respective locations, it's legal like that. And that's the rules. If it's legal like that in your home, you're allowed to monetize it. That's how fucking far it's come.
Far, bro.
Listen, we went from watching TV in our homes on big boxy ass
boxes,
TVs,
right?
Bro. Boxes, all right, with these goofy ass, big ass TVs, watching Zach Morris with his goofy ass, big ass fucking cell phone, right? To now us just being like streaming a whole fucking network on essentially phones if we wanted to, right? Like, basically, that's not the way that. That's not the way that we're really running it, right? Like that's not the way that the play is really being ran all the way, right? Like EO Dub Network, like everything is backed up on hard drives and shit like that, you know? So like, it's not like we're doing it on a shoestring budget. It really is. But if we wanted to, we could. And you know what? It's also legit. Right. You know what I mean? Like, because phones do everything. It's crazy. We went from watching Zach Morris have a boxy ass fucking brick that did nothing other than make a phone call, I imagine very slowly and horribly sounding, to like being able to stream whole ass shows and do all sorts of things, film movies.
But just like on a tangential point, right? A lot of people used to sit there and listen. Like, I have this ongoing conversation sometimes about like why attention spans aren't what they used to be. Like, people don't spend as much time with albums because there was no 3-hour Marvel movies and there was no fucking 80-hour video games back in the 80s. Like, I would argue there's competing entertainment that actually captures focus. Because listen, like, you can tell me all you want about attention spans until you watch those same ADD motherfuckers talk about Marvel. And it's over. That'll be a 5-hour debate with minutia. Like, we're talking, they'll go frame by frame on that bitch. And it makes no sense if the world has no attention spans. But arguably, 80s movies are good, but they're not like Marvel.
Yeah, no, it's just we live in a different era. We definitely live in a different era.
A classic 80s movie is like 72 minutes long.
Facts.
You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Like
Facts.
That's something.
Facts.
You know, that's some shit that like
Back to the Future. Back to the Future was like runtime of like 72 minutes 90, and shit. You know, like 93 minutes at max. 93
minutes, bro.
95 minutes, 98 minutes. Like, once you got into the hundreds, it was like, whoa. We're talking about like the Godfather movies and shit. You know what I mean? Like the 200-minute running time and shit. You know,
yo, Godfather and fucking Scarface.
Yo, them videos had intermissions, bro. They had intermissions.
You know what I'm saying? So like,
between you ejecting the videotape, let me tell you something though. This is all awesome shit, yo. Because it's like, yo, I got to live through all this ill shit. So it's like, I'm not left behind with none of it. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, I kept on evolving as things changed, you know, as I went from a Walkman to a Discman, you know what I mean?
Right.
As I went from a Discman to MP3 player, as I went from an MP3 player to my phone.
With Spotify or Apple Music for you, I bet. I don't know what you use.
It's crazy.
Yeah, man. So it's interesting, yo.
So I got
it. Like, I'll fucking. Yeah, my fault.
No, go ahead. You were gonna say something, and I cut you off.
No, I was just gonna say, like, I know. I'm cognizant of these fucking time differences, and I'm cognizant of these distinctions because, like, I've you know, I've made it a point to show my kids certain things that I feel were kind of like impactful and just kind of like necessary. You know what I'm saying? Even like, you know, just in general from like my childhood. You know what I'm saying? So like I'll show. I've shown them like 16 Candles or Weird Science or, you know, like these classic.
How do they
like,
react to it?
Yo, they love them shits, man. They love them shits.
Word.
These, you know,
That's
Breakfast
dope.
Club. You know what I'm saying? You know, but you know, it's also interesting, right? Like to bring that point up, like, you know, my parents would take me to see, would take my brother, would take us, I should say, to see, you know, big time fucking movies too when we were young. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So like in '89, we saw Do the Right Thing. You know what I'm saying? So I showed my kids Do the Right Thing. You know, Empire of the Sun, The Last Emperor. You know, showed my kids all these movies, you know what I'm saying?
Terminator 2.
You know, so anything that kind of like, you know, feels nostalgic, I've also shown to my kids because I just kind of want them to have like, again, perspective and kind of like, you know, insight into who I am as a fucking person. You know what I'm saying? And you know, like I think things like that convey pieces of you that otherwise can't be expressed. You know what I'm saying? Like I can't, you know, I'll never be able to really have, you know, and this is tangential as well, but like, and this delves into like a parenting thing, but like, I'll never be able to have as amazing, and I have an amazing relationship with my teenage daughter. I'll never be able to have like as amazing as a relationship as to teach her some of the lessons that like she could learn from the movie like 16 Candles.
Or,
you know what I'm saying? Like heartbreak and fucking like, you know, being after somebody who's not interested in you and you know, like your merits and your worth. You know what I'm saying? And your value and things like, you know what I'm saying? Like all like conversations to that point, you know, to those points would ultimately like, you know, you know, from my perspective, you know, ultimately like going one ear and out the other, but like to show, you know, a teenage child like, yo, like, you see, this is the kind of shit that I was watching when I was at this exact stage in your life, you know, that you are in your life, you know what I mean? So like, like I identify, I know in a more kind of like, you know,
that's super dope.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Just my fault.
Because I think we all do that, right? Like all human beings. Like I laugh because like my father used to try to get me to watch like his shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That he used to watch.
Oh, I watched all of my dad's shit. It was
I'd be like, no, I'm not doing that. Like it's black and white TV, Dad. Give me some color. What the fuck?
You fucking privilege. That's privilege. That's smacks in the weeks of fucking privilege. You fucking
absolutely. What? My fuck. Yo, I ended up watching his shit, right? But like, I just think it's funny because we all have that in us, right? Of like that desire of like, yo, next generation. Look at what I was into when I was your age, you know? But like to be smart enough to do it, you know, in ways like that, you know, to like realize that like, yo, you'll be able to like impart life lessons that are probably like pivotal at certain points in her life. You know what I mean? Like,
no,
it's like having a conversation that you don't even need to have.
Yeah, but that's it. Know? But just the idea of also like, yo, like maybe you're not the right guy to be talking romance with a young lady, but you know the right media piece to. It's like, yo, picking the right song. It's like, yo, wildly I watch girls when they're mad at their boyfriend quote song lyrics to like tell the world / their boyfriend they're mad, although he never notices. But like that kind of shit, you know, it's like via media. There's a lot of communication that can happen, and it's a really cool idea. Like a really cool.
Yeah. You know, I watched. I'm sure you guys did watch the Grammys, right, over on Sunday, and that was kind of like, and that was like a theme that was coming out a lot. Is like artists and music and artistry. And Jean-Baptiste made the point. He was like, "Yo, the shit touches people when, you know, at the time and at the point in their lives when they need it the most." You know what I'm saying? And he gave kudos to everybody that he was fucking like nominated with in terms of saying like, yo, I love all of y'all. And all the your creativity has definitely fucking like been in my playlist, and I've definitely rocked out, you know, at various points in life, you know, based on when I needed those things, you know what I'm saying? And so like, you know, at the top kind of, you know, Holden, you were saying like, yo, music reaches you and gets to you, you know, where you know, and it becomes like indelible, right? It forms indelible marks on your path and on your journey. And so like, you know, yeah, like, you know, so I guess you're right. Like I never looked at it like that, right? Like there's a deft touch kind of to imparting that and saying to my kids, like, yo, I know where you at. Like, here it is. Like, this is, you know, when you were doing that, and when I was feeling that, like you're feeling right now, this is what I was looking at. And so, it's a kind of dope little lesson too.
Big time. How did you become the Dubbchivist? Because I feel like if we don't touch on that, that misses a huge point of the end of the week association we're here with.
For sure. So I've always been a collector.
Okay.
Yeah, Flacko, you were saying?
I was gonna say you went to high school with Pro. You said.
Yeah. So I went to yeah.
Take it from there.
The fast history on that, right? The fast history of my association with the Dub is just that, right? Like I was in high school Pro. Pro's been my best friend since I was 94, 95. We graduated high school in 96. I go away to military school. That's because of skirt chasing. I get sent to military school. I come home. You know, one of the first times I come home from school, I go check Pro, and I was thinking about this because it's been a minute and I haven't been able. For a long time I wasn't really able to pinpoint like when I met Vice, right? But I realized that it had to be at like Hunter College, like at Central Park. You know what I'm saying? Like Pro was going to Hunter, whatever. And so, you know, the arc and trajectory of like eye to eye, into the Dub is kind of like my same arc and trajectory, right? As far as becoming a Dubbchivist is concerned, I've always been a fucking collector of things, right? Of things that are nostalgic, right? And things, you know, that for whatever reason I have an affinity for. You know, it starts with like pens and watches to sunglasses to like when we were coming up, most kids collected like coins and stamps and shit like that, right? Or like comic books and fucking trading cards and things like that. Like I was always on some like other shit, right? I was always collecting different things. So like, so ultimately what happened is just like, you know, like things just for whatever reason, you know, objects, mementos just fucking strike, sentimental chords with me. You know what I'm saying? And so like I just, you know, I would hang on to things for various reasons, for their impact in my life, or just, you know, from a historical perspective. I think a lot of that has to do with kind of like my father, right? And my father, you know, I mentioned was active in the community, but in large part he was a journalist, right? Who was kind of like on the scene and like I said, they had a radio program, or maybe I didn't mention, but they also ran a radio program.
Yeah, I don't think that you mentioned that at all. I'm like, wait, he didn't even mention that your father was a reporter in any of that.
So in association with the community center was a radio program, was a weekly radio.
That makes so much more sense for the WBAI shit. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. That's.
We interviewed Jay Smooth. Interviewed Jay Smooth, who also worked at WBAI, if I'm not mistaken. You know what I mean?
Yeah, bro. See. So yeah, I mean, honestly, like, yeah, that's where like the exposure comes from, even to kids weren't listening to radio stations like that unless their parents were, you know what I'm saying, coming up. But so they ran a weekly radio program which gave, which provided news on Haiti and the current events in Haiti of the week, you know what I'm saying? So a lot of like why I would keep shit, and especially a lot of why I kept shit as it relates to EOW, is just for that documenting history perspective, right? Like these are flashes in time, right? They're snapshots, right? Like everything is a snapshot, right? Like if life is the culmination of all of your fucking moments and times and experiences, right? Then a journal of those things is exactly that, right? Like they say a photograph is worth 1,000 words, right? So from the very beginning, and even, and as the dub was gaining like momentum, and we were inching closer and closer to kind of like achieving and reaching that unofficial moniker as the longest running weekly open mic in New York City history, right? Like I've always had kind of just this eye for, saving, like if I, in the early, right, like in the early days, if we were promoting something and we got like a stack of like 100 flyers each or whatever the case might be, right, to spray the city or whatever, and hand out and put in spots and on doors and, whatever, and windshields and shit like that, like I'd always be cognizant of hanging on to like 5 or 10 of them.
Yeah, I did street teaming as well. Yeah. You know what I mean? So like,
right
in the middle of the era, right? And so like, I wish I would have like had I always look back at all, because I was a New Yorker, same as the rest of y'all, right? So like, I'm there, getting Voltrons when they're die-cast metal. You know what I mean? Getting G.I. Joes and having fucking Ken Griffey rookie cards, because why? Because you're just that age, so you're collecting the cards of that era.
Right.
You know what I mean? Right. So like you end up with all these things that you don't even realize later on are like grossly valuable, that you're just like, man, I threw that shit away. Like,
yo, like, it's for me, it's been like all things, like, right, I had this like ultimate dream in my head, right, to live in a home that is a sort of like hip-hop retrospective, right? And by that I like, and by that I just mean like off of the shit that I've just collected in my life. Like it's been my nature for most of my life to be a collector and to fucking feel sentimentality to, attach to certain things, right? And originally it started out as like some hip hop, it just started out as some collector shit, but it turned into like some hip hop shit, you know what I'm saying? Because obviously hip hop is the most impactful and fucking largest musical genre of the modern age, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like, yeah, for sure. So like
rock and roll was the last music of an era.
Right, exactly. Yo, and again, like, hip hop, I come from the school where my parents hated hip hop, you know what I'm saying? And it's interesting because it's just cycles repeating themselves, right? But I got things in my archives that have nothing to do with the dub, you know what I'm saying? Like I got things in my archives like Apache fucking Indian stickers, album stickers. I got like Gravediggers fucking, promo materials, you know what I'm saying? Like and that's tremendously hip hop, like monumental hip hop, right? Prince Paul, fucking RZA, and fucking fuck, it's escaping me right now, you know what I'm saying? But like I got all these things. Like I don't know if you ever fucking went to the dojo, Flacko, right? But
in Manhattan before it went to Jersey?
No, the dojo in Brooklyn. In Brooklyn.
Right.
Yes.
Down by the piers, no? Or
yes, exactly, down in Dumbo. So if you ever been there, if you ever recorded in there, you probably remember the fucking Jam Master J, the Jam Master J poster, the Memorial Jam Master J poster. That belongs to me. You know what I'm saying?
Word.
Like I was working at Adidas and they did a fucking Memorial JMJ sneaker, you know what I'm saying? And that was a fucking promo piece and it was gonna go in the garbage. And I was like, yo, like I need that. You know what I'm saying? Like that's fucking monumental dope. Fucking hip hop history. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, so it's just been like things like that, like flashpoints, you know what I'm saying? And so like
did you just like flex that you're the supplier, like in a high art kind of sense, of a piece of culture to a recording studio?
The Dub's recording studio, you know.
Yeah, that's kind of fire. With the way you like presented it, I'm like, yeah, that's a lot. Like that's pretty dope. Like if you really like break it all down.
Yo, thank you, man. So I'll give you the story just even on that piece, right? And it exists. I know that Nunzio has it somewhere in storage. He told me.
He definitely does because I was recording at every dojo after, like I didn't record at Dumbo, or I think maybe one time I recorded at Dumbo. One time I went there a couple of times. One time was for, I forgot what event. But I didn't go there much, right? Like two times, right? 2-3 times or something like that. But like once the dojo was in Jersey, I went there all the time.
All the time,
And the dojo has maintained itself in Jersey pretty much. And almost every dojo that I've gone to in Jersey always has that same Run DMC art piece.
Poster up in it. So the story behind that shit is, you know, I alluded to the fact that I've been a fashion professional for the last, you know, I said 18 years, but that's just wholesale. Like I've been in retail for much longer than that. Like retail, wholesale, you put it together. I've been in the business, shit, I don't even know, since fucking 98. So do the math on that, whatever. Right? That's probably like another
24. 34?
There you go.
No, I'm doing no, 24.
24. So yeah. So right. So retail. So 18 years wholesale. 6 years retail before that. So I was working at the Adidas store, right? And as we know, Queen Stand Up, JMJ, Run DMC, my Adidas, you know what I'm saying? The shit goes on and on, right? The resonating factors of this item fucking go on and on, right? Kid from Queens, you know what I'm saying? Raising hell, the whole nine, right? Like I can't escape and I will never fucking shy away from the fact that I'm a kid from Queens, right? Like, you know, if you do hip hop history, if you do hip hop knowledge, like Queens historically gets shit on, but Queens fucking made, you know, Queens in large part responsible.
No, come on.
No, listen. BDP said it, right? BDP said it. No.
Come on.
But either way, I'm unapologetically a kid
Hold on,
from Queens,
I'm gonna throw it out like this one thing.
Acting like you guys.
If you're where I'm from, so yeah, because if you're where I'm from, I got told by everybody, bro, go to Queens. And then Flacko was like, listen, let's reconsider this. Do you know how far away Queens is on your limited time that you have here? Let's do some like thinking on your first trip to New York City. But yeah, bro. When you're not from, because here's the thing, you have the New York City guy perspective. That's fine. But we're everywhere else in the world where everything in New York City is blessed. Like, it's all good. Like, bro, people will just quote so much shit about Queens history and its significance to hip hop in my circles, man. They were like, you have to go to Queens. You have to go. And like I got list after list after list, upon which Flacco was like, do you see these buildings? Are you sure?
Listen, my thing is this, right? My thing was this, like, yo, we're uptown, right? Manhattan in the city is the easiest thing to show him. Besides uptown, we went into Brooklyn one day.
Yeah,
right.
That was fire. Like, yo, I was a lot of driving. I didn't know.
You stay in Brooklyn. Yeah. The Brooklyn homies will show you all over Brooklyn and Queens. You know what I mean? And that doesn't have to be on me. You're asking me for too much, kid. You know, along with the fact that I get very lost in Queens.
No, but like I have appreciation for how big all this is now, right? Like,
yeah,
it's big.
Yeah, nah, it's big. It's huge.
Queens is huge, man. Queens is huge. Queens is huge. Queens is huge in a lot of ways, man. Lots and lots of ways that we don't get. You know,
I lived in Queens.
Hip hop minimizes. Wow, really? Wow, that's news.
No, definitely. I lived in Richmond Hill. I lived on fucking the Lefferts Ave stop of the fucking A train.
You live in Queens.
Yeah. When I lived there, I lost all linking up with my friends uptown. Like it went from like doing it like maybe once or twice when I first moved there to like never at all. Because my life was just in Queens. And like everything I did was in Queens. My partying was in Queens. My everything was in Queens. My job was in Queens. It's just Queens became my life, and it was just like, yo, I'm sorry to say, this is not great. Like, you know, like I did not enjoy it.
That's why I hung out in the LES and fucking, you know, and Manhattan and Brooklyn so tough because motherfuckers were not
Manhattan, kid. It's hard to like chill in the boroughs. Like
you guys are like doing this wild comparison.
But like, you really go to Manhattan for the litness, because you know that the lit shit is usually in Manhattan.
I'm gonna have to just throw it out there and be like, from my perspective, you might be right, but like what you would consider to be some mundane ass shit in Queens, to me, would be the lit shit that they'd all be on my dick for doing regardless. And you would be
definitely.
Bro, I got somebody hyped up about that random picture I took in a chicken spot. Because it's a New York City chicken spot, you know? Like, it's enough. Like, all of it's dope. It doesn't matter what borough you're in. I mean, you guys care because you know things. I don't know.
That's fire, yo, Holden, man. Next time you come this way, man, just let me know, bro.
Absolutely.
You guys are gonna take care of him next time. Like, that's it.
I'll show you Queens the right way. You need to see like certain shit. You know what I'm saying? But getting back to the poster, right? So I was working at Adidas Originals, at JMJ Passes. And so they re-released the it's not a superstar, it's a different shoe, right? Most people don't know that. Adidas, like Run DMC was wearing superstars, but you know, which are shell toes, right? The shell toe Adidas is called the Superstar. But they made a different shoe for them so that they could wear it unlaced the way that they used to. Right, which is the joint that has like the bands like on the sides, whatever. So either way, they re-released the fucking signature Run DMC shoe in honor of JMJ's passing, and so there was this poster, and it's a beautiful fucking just black and white poster. All it says on it is R.I.P. Jam Master Jay with his date of birth and date of passing, and it's a pair of fucking shell toe Adidas with the fucking tongue sticking up.
With the fedora, right? With the famous Run DMC hat. You know what I mean?
Yep. 100%, and the fucking and the sneakers, 100%. And so like
it's a moving piece. Like it's one of those pieces that like when you see it, like you take it in, like and it's like, yo, this is a really nice piece. Like this is,
bro. You know, it's a good thing that you saved it from the dumpster, right? Because like being in event production, I understand that, like how much I throw away shit. Right? I throw away shit because I'm like, no, like I don't care about like whatever Smart Water's latest promotion or some, you know, whatever. But the point is, you throw away so much, like, but sometimes good stuff
Like,
yeah,
there's guys on the stagehand side that are constantly like, yo, can I take that wood, man? Like, wood is really expensive right now. Like, you guys are about to throw away like a couple $1,000s worth of wood. Like, don't do that. Like, I'll take it home. And I'm just like, yeah, man, if you want to take it in your car, like, feel free. Like, but like the fact that you saved something like that, that's like a valuable piece of like, you know,
hip hop history,
art.
man. Hip hop history, and more importantly, right? Like, it's like, you know, it's not, because it also does have an Adidas logo on it. You know what I'm saying? Like, beyond just the sneaker, right? So it's like, it's really more like, to me, something like that is more of a statement of the impact of hip hop and the hip hop culture, right? Because here is, you know, a global company, a global entity, who not only, you know, we have both examples, right? Like, in our upbringing of like hip hop and its sometimey relationship with the fashion industry, right? Like, you know, you got, you know, like, case in point, like Tommy Hilfiger, you know, saying that I don't make my shit, you know, I don't make my clothes for black people, when Grand Poobah was like, Jabot hanging baggy Hilfiger on the top, knapsack on my back, that's just my flavor, right? So, you know, hip hop has been this commercially global driving force for so long, right? And we have that in our history, right? We got the Ralph Lauren and the Tommy Hilfiger shunning hip hop's influence, or hip hop's adaptation, right, of these things. And here's like Adidas, which is exponentially larger than either of those two things, right? And embracing like, yo, Run DMC, like Jam Master Jay, like foundational, right? Like thank you, like homage, you know what I'm saying, to what, you know,
yeah, they were
the
one
culture,
of the first, essentially.
yeah, you know what I'm saying, like what the culture did, what the culture represented, right? That's the first, 100%. If you fucking look back at it, that's the first commercial hip hop relationship, is Run DMC and Adidas.
That's the first organic commercial hip hop relationship, right? Like, that's why it was always kind of cool, because it always made sense. Like, Run DMC was just doing street New York shit at the time, which was being cool and having Adidas and having shell tops and fucking no laces. You know what I'm saying? Or like the big fat laces. And Adidas, instead of doing what every other corporation was doing at the time, and like turning their back and shitting and disrespecting, they embraced them, and that's like dope.
Yeah. So, you know, so just recognizing, you know, the significance of Jam Master Jay. You couple like the significance of Jam Master Jay to me, as a kid from Queens, the significance of Jam Master Jay to hip hop, the significance of the culture, and the significance of the fact that it was Adidas, right, paying homage. I had to have the piece, and so I took the piece, right? And so, you know, as the dub was growing, and gentlemen, I just got to be candid with y'all. It's 8:50 in about 10 minutes. I got to fucking sign off personally. Yeah, but you know, as far as the Dubbchivist is concerned, like I you know, I have, you know, I don't know, you guys probably saw me, you know, air the, you know, the second ever MC challenge, right, on the Dubbin' in the Crates show, right? I know Flacko, you caught a couple of pieces of things on some late night, early EO Zoom shit, right? Like, I knew very early, and might have been the first person to understand that what was happening with respect to EO Dub needed to be documented, right? Like, needed to be preserved, like needed to be archived, honestly. You know what I'm saying? And so that's what kind of just led me to just doing what I was doing, right? Like I was always a collector. I have this fucking like example of journalism and of, you know, documenting historical significance. I come from this fucking time and understanding and being witness to disruption. And truthfully, that's what EOW felt like, was disruption. You know what I'm saying? You know, in the underground New York hip hop scene, right? Like for the first time you have three, you know, sort of, you know, significant like underground hip hop entities, Eye to Eye, Solid Ground, and fucking, you know, High Society making noise, right? And just like, you know, the innovation, right? Like honestly, my Dubbchivist status, and you know, is born out of, yes, that collector's mentality and that collector's and documentarian mindset, but is also tremendously like the result of the innovation of the MC challenge. You know what I'm saying? Like I was blown away, like my fandom, right, of hip hop, right? Like my fandom of music and my fandom of like the concept, right? Like, yo, I was blown away by the first MC challenge. You know what I'm saying? I was like, yo, you motherfuckers, you know, between Vice and super, you know, super manager fucking Coach Calhoun, like I was like, yeah, y'all motherfuckers have created a standard bearing test, right? It's not even like a proving ground, it's a fucking test, right? It's like a test of your fucking fitness, you know what I'm saying, as an MC, right? And so like I was blown away by the first one, and I was like, damn, this shit needs to be, you know, documented. It needs to be fucking saved. And so unfortunately, like that's why like the, you know, the first recording that I have of an MC challenge is of the second one and not the first one where Webify slays it. You know what I'm saying? Also, I was fucking judging the very first MC challenge, so that's significant too. You know what I'm saying? That's part and parcel of why like I was so fucking impacted by this shit and so blown away by it, right? And innovation not only from a perspective of like testing fitness, right, in terms of all aspects of being an MC, but innovation in the sense of not the anti-battle, right? Like it's not the fucking battle. It's not the I don't know Flacco and I'm fucking passing judgment and making assumptions on his, you know, on his appearance, you know what I'm saying? And like what I may have heard and what may or not be true, you know what I'm saying? It's like, yo, I'm really just an MC competing against myself, right? Like, and that's the genius of like the rounds, right? The rounds are significant, but the rounds also wouldn't mean as much if the fucking judging criteria wasn't as whole, right? Right? Like the judging criteria hits you on your crowd response, which if you take like a battle, crowd response dictates a lot of the winner, whether or not the fucking bars are fucking up to snuff. You know what I'm saying? Lyricism, right? Like there are MCs, dub MCs included, who exhibit, you know, superior lyricism, right? But does that lyricism fucking translate to impact, right? Like, have you spoken over your fucking audience, right? Like, does, you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, did
it hit? You know what I'm saying? The way like you intended it to hit. Like, it's fucking beautiful, it's eloquent, you know what I'm saying? But did it hit? You know what I'm saying? Stage presence, right? Like, yo, if we in a fucking 4-bar cipher, right? Like, and these, honestly, like, I'm illustrating the ways in which, like, as a fan and as a person, you know, as I'm talking about it now, this is what I'm realizing. This is how I think that the beauty of the challenge, or at least from my perspective, is that it's giving me a basis on which to quantify and qualify my fandom of certain fucking MCs. You know what I'm saying? Because it not only measures their aptitude, but informs like why their aptitude resonates. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, it's like, yo, like, you know, it's a quantification of the impact, right? That like, why did it touch me? You know what I'm saying? Like, why when I was 9 did fucking NWA saying niggas with attitude, that like that's what NWA stands for, and rapping what they were fucking rapping about and express yourself and everything like that. Like, why does that touch me? You know what I'm saying? And it's like, yo, the cadence, the fucking stage presence, the lyricism, you know what I'm saying? It equally informed and gave and provides an ability to fucking, you know, concretely say why you fuck with somebody. You know what I'm saying? And so like, sense. Just as, yeah, you know, and so just like as a fan of hip hop and as a fan of like my friends, right? And my friends who fucking created this fucking thing, it was like, dog.
I mean, it totally makes sense why you had to document that. And as I understand it, you got like 2 minutes left, right? Because it's almost... So we should probably just wrap that up then, so that we can kind of finish with you with us. So I just want to like thank you for coming.
Unfortunate, because I would have liked to talk to you about the fashion and
absolutely.
like your profession and what you've been doing professionally.
Well, let's take it just like you know, I'm not married to the fucking time. Let's take it a few minutes, man. Talk to me. You know what I'm saying? Let's take it a few minutes. We'll go a few minutes over.
Well then let's get straight to that. Like
fashion.
What have you been doing in like what like your career in fashion? Like, how did this start, and what do you do in fashion?
Okay, so in 1998, I get a job. My brother's working for 555 Soul, right? Yeah, I know 555 Soul, right? My brother's working for 555 Soul. He's home from school. He's working for 555 Soul. I get hired, right, to as a fucking part-time fucking stock guy, right? And I'll speed it up for the sake of saving time, right? So I'm working 555 Soul 1998. 2001, I'm fired from 555 Soul, right?
I think that makes about sense. I'm pretty sure that they didn't last very long after that.
You know what I'm saying? So okay, wait, hold on. You know what? I'll back up. 1998, I get hired at 555 Soul. 1999, August, EOW starts, right? So I'm early fucking helping Eye to Eye, getting photo shoots, nigga, you know, Eye to Eye, Vice and Pro. At this point, it's whittled down from, you know, Slane and fucking Stead and all the other characters who were involved with Eye to Eye. You know, I'm helping them with, you know, management efforts, fucking photos, you know, recording, documented shit. That's where I have recordings of fucking early Eye to Eye performances, etc. EOW jumps off August of 1999. 2001, roughly around July, August, I'm fired from 555 Soul. That's a whole nother story. August 2001, EOW gets fucking contracted by a company called Mad Soul. Shout out to my man Mark D'Amelio, to represent them on the trade show sales floor of the Magic Convention, which is the men's, the men's show in Las Vegas. Takes place twice a year. Biggest fucking show in fashion at the time. you know, and my brother is working for the Source magazine. We go out there, we do just what we do, which is EOW representing the open mic, you know, in the middle of the trade show floor. So I get the behind the scenes fucking look at the fashion industry, right? Like where the magic is really fucking happening. It's not just at the store level where, you know, I'm selling to the direct customer, but it's the fucking people who are selling to the stores. So I get hip to that fucking game. I start recognizing like, yo, I don't want to be on my feet like, you know, 40 hours a fucking week, you know what I'm saying? Working in this retail shit. I'd rather be on the fucking back end of this shit. Kind of like moving and shaking and influencing, right? So my brother is working with a dude who I actually just sat with and chopped it up for the first time in a long time just on Monday this week, Peter Mintz. Peter Mintz has this fucking showroom. It's called the Moo Showroom. He's got some fucking super dope, influential brands in there at the time. Red Monkey Denim, Royal Filth T-shirts, Massive Revolution clothing. He's on the verge of fucking signing on with Prohibit. Peter Mintz is a dude who quiet as cat brought Mecca, Aniche, Alphanumeric, all these fucking like crazy fucking brands to the fucking table out here in the Northeast. You know what I'm saying? Like, yo, was pioneering shit. It's crazy, right? So I fucking happened. My brother's working with him. My brother's actually moving on to take another job. I had actually paid for myself. Like, I saw the back end of the business. I wanted to get in. I didn't want to stand on my feet 40 hours a week. So I was like, yo, I started fucking paying for myself. The next, you know, EOW gets flown out. We get paid to fucking fly out there and do what we do. The next time I had an opportunity, I fucking paid for myself to fly out to Vegas and fucking be there for the trade shows. I was able to stay with my brother, etc. I was essentially auditioning for a job, you know what I'm saying? So this dude fucking Peter Mintz, who brought all these amazing brands to the urban fucking market, is like watching me, right? My brother's helping him out. I'm there helping out my brother. My brother was working a couple of brands at the time. Robert Graham, which if you listen to Jay-Z's Change Clothes track, right, he references like changing out from fucking Mitchell and Ness and like throwback, you know, jerseys to fucking button ups and shit like that. Like Robert Graham is one of the brands that he fucking references, you know what I'm saying? So my brother had to go over to the fucking Robert Graham booth. I fucking get thrown into the fire by this dude, Peter Mintz. He's like, yo, you want to work this appointment for me? I got to talk to these people. I fucking show, you know, I just mimicked what my brother had been doing all fucking morning, right? I just fucking showed this line that I had been helping my brother show all morning and fucking learning to these people who were dressed in suits that I had no idea who they were. After the showing, this dude, Peter Mintz, is like, yo, how did it go? Blah, blah, blah. I was like, yo, you know, it was cool. Felt good. You know what I'm saying? I felt natural. You know what I'm saying? I just did what my brother was doing. And he was like, oh, that was Macy's West. So unbeknownst to me, like my very first like green experience in the fashion business is fucking showing a collection to the buyers from Macy's on the West Coast. You know what I'm saying? So like, you know, like I was like, you know, like had he told me that obviously beforehand, I probably would have fucking shat on myself. But the fact that he fucking like told me after the fact, like I just did I just mimicked what I had been watching and helping out on, and felt like empowered, like I could do this shit. And so like when my brother ultimately like fucking moved on to, you know, different roles in the fashion industry, this dude Peter Mintz like tapped me and fucking brought me in. And so since April of 2006, which is where we are basically right now, I'm coming up on my 18th anniversary. I've been a fucking, you know, I made the transition from being on the retail side to being on the wholesale side. And in the last like 18 years, I've done fucking everything you could fucking imagine, from like you know, broken brands, sold established brands, fucking sold premium denim, sold like every fucking market, like footwear, premium denim, men's, young men's, streetwear, urban. You know, I've done it all. Like I've fucking sold Fab's brand, Rich Young, for a fucking while. Like in 2008 to 2011, we had our show. We opened a showroom, and we had our own showroom, and we were selling Rich Young. We were selling this brand called Sabbath, super fire, Japanese brand. You know, done by this dude who's currently the fucking creative director at Members Only. You know. All kinds of like wild fly shit. Benji Denim, which was this like premium denim brand from this kid out of Queens Brooklyn, who, you know, learned how to sew watching his grandmother. You know, so you know, I've done everything. Like I rode kind of like this merchandising wave. Like my wave was like, you know, merchandising, you know, sales into merchandising, which ultimately led me to getting like a salaried position from which like I never looked back. You know what I'm saying? Like from that salaried retail position, I transitioned to a salaried like wholesale position. And then like my wholesale career has been, you know, at times like salaried, at times independent, at times as a business owner, but has spanned the gamut. And, you know, like I've been doing it, like I said, for 18 years. And so like right now I'm doing more like consulting, and helping out with like projects here and there based on like my own choosing. You know what I'm saying?
Wow.
I think that's where everyone wants to get to. I choose when I want to work, and who I want to work with is absolutely the ultimate result
like
of specialty.
Said, you know, the most important thing that he said is like, you know, he kept building towards these things across an 18-year career. 18?
Yeah.
Yeah, 18.
Well, 18 plus the 6.
Yeah, plus 18 wholesale plus the 6 in retail.
24.
That's wild.
Yep.
Across a 24-year career, you know, like that's you built yourself to this. So like you didn't wake up at 18, you know, fresh out of high school with this ability to do that. You know what I mean?
Nah.
You had to build towards that. You know?
Yeah.
Like,
you know, and ultimately, like a lot of people, man, like I started working in retail as like a means to feed myself while attending school. And ultimately, like working fucking took over. You know what I'm saying? And so, like, you know, that's a dicey proposition. You know what I'm saying? And I've been blessed in that I was able to fashion that into a fucking professional career. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You know,
a lot of people go into retail, and that's not what they're. Like in New York City too. Like I think a lot of people don't understand, right? Like fresh out of high school, a lot of people do go to McDonald's, right? But then some people go into like retail in stores because there's so many stores in New York City that you could work at any sort, you know, clothing. Like people like usually go to work at what store they like to wear the most, you know? And so to be able to not just end up lifelong Gap floor employee, you know, and to be able to parlay that into like a career where you get to choose who you work with.
That's big.
You're a blessed man, sir. You're a blessed man.
Absolutely.
I wanted to know that because that's very curious. Like, for as much as everything else, you know, like is very important, right? Because we're on EOW Network. I still want to have your story, right?
For sure.
Right.
And fashion is super important to our culture, but also to me.
Facts.
So, you know, it's interesting. It's funny
I'm
you
a
say
fly
that,
nigga,
right?
son.
It's
you know
funny
what
you
I'm
say
saying?
that. Yeah, yo, dog. I like to believe that I'm a fly nigga as well. And it's funny that you say that, right? Because, thank you, sir. I appreciate the cosign. You already know. It's funny because what I learned on the backside of shit, right, is that, you know, it was you know, working in fashion is an opportunity and a chance to influence culture in a different way, right? Like, yo, if you take you just said it, right? You just crystallized it, right? You just said I'm a fly nigga, right? And like, yo, that's merchandising, right? Like what you do every day in terms of getting up and putting your fucking shit together, that's merchandising. You know what I'm saying? That's how you fucking present yourself to the fucking world. You know what I'm saying? And that's what like on the back end of shit, once I got into like the wholesale the wholesale side of shit, you know, as a wholesale professional, you're shaping culture, right? Like it's a different aspect of the game, but you're still shaping culture, right? Because I sell, you know, name your favorite store, right? On your block. Like you grew up uptown, right? You're in the X. So like, where do you shop? You shop on Fordham, right?
Probably. Yeah, I mean, yeah, definitely.
Fordham,
we definitely.
Southern Boulevard.
You know what? Oh, the other Olivier was just here, and I took him to eat at Cucci Fritos on Grand Concourse at 188, right? And when we were done, I took him on the whole stroll from Fordham Road and Grand Concourse to Fordham Road and 3rd Ave, right? And like on that walk, I looked and I was like, yo, this VIM, bro, this VIM has serviced so many. I bought so many sneakers at this VIM,
so many
bro.
Fucking sneakers,
like,
dog.
yo, this VIM has serviced kids going back to school on Easter break, Christmas break, so many ways. Like, yo, this VIM is legendary and epic. And he just doesn't understand because, right, like, what? Like,
yo, and that's the type of shit that I came to know, right? Like, that's the kind of shit, right? So, like, when something hits a store, it's like 9 months to a year old for somebody who fucking works on the wholesale side, right?
Yeah,
absolutely.
Because, so you have 1 minute, right?
Yep.
So we should wrap that up. That's all I'm saying.
Wait. All right, I got you. Let me I'll just finish up, right? So like, yo, that 6 to 9 months, dogs, as a wholesale professional, I've been selling that shit. Like I watched the design to the final fucking, you know, decisions in terms of like what we're going to sell as a collection, to me presenting it to that store owner that you ultimately as an end consumer went in there and fucking bought that shit from. And so like even 9 to 12 months later, when I walk in, when I'm you know, stomping your neighborhood because I'm about to go see that retailer and I'm about to sell that next collection, I see you in the fucking street wearing something that I sold to him, and I fucking reinforce your purchase like, yo, that's a dope hoodie, fam. You know what I'm saying? You don't even know why I'm saying that to you. You think I'm just fucking jocking Jay-Z, you know what I'm saying? You know?
That has happened to me many times. Now I'm like,
you know what I'm saying?
Like every time I was somewhere and somebody told me how fly my fit was, he was literally selling the next collection. Like, look, you see, look at this fly motherfucker right here. You don't see what I'm doing?
Yo, that's 100% the bar, bro. I'm fucking making it so that you feel good about the purchase, so that you can go back to that same nigga you bought it from and be like, yo, I need more of these niggas. Like, what else these niggas got? You know what I'm saying? But that's been my life over the last 18 years, fam.
That's dope as fuck. That's amazing.
Thank you, man. Thank you, bro. So, on that note, man.
Yeah. I definitely appreciate you coming through with the conversation.
Yes,
that was pretty amazing. Just wanted to give a shout out to End of the Week, you know, for hosting this and having you here. Y'all can make sure to follow them at eodub.com. Big love to everybody watching this on the live. We appreciate you out here. Honestly, without you, it's less of a show. And for those of you watching this in the future, we appreciate you as well. And yeah, thanks again for coming through, man. It was really great.
Yo, Holden, man, thanks for having me, man. Yo, Flacko, you already know. Appreciate you guys, man. It's been a lot of fun.
Man, thank you for coming by. Thank you for sharing your time with us.
Facts.
Absolutely, bro. Y'all be good.
All right, so live long and prosper, everyone.
It's easy all day.